Okay. That's the problem when I've got classes prepared and then we don't do them for a couple of weeks. Then I go back and I try to figure out, what was I saying by that comment, you know? That comment must have really sounded good at the
Sure.
time, but we are at the what do you call it? Sukkot. We're at Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. And remember, we have spring holidays, which we haven't covered because we're in the fall now. And then we have the fall holidays. And the ones that we covered were Rosh Hashanah, which is the Feast of Trumpets. We covered the Days of Awe, which really isn't one of the feasts, but it goes between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. And now we're on Tabernacles. I have some of these calendars left still, if anybody wants one and, to follow along. All they're doing is showing that the Jewish calendar and then where the holidays are located. So if anybody, you want one? Anyway, so if anybody wants one, I got them up here. You just come up and get them. What I've been trying to do with these holidays is to show where they fit in the Old Testament, what the Old Testament said about them, and do they involve Jesus and how Jesus worked in these holidays, or what they were pointing to in Jesus. Because remember, Jesus said, all these things are written of me. So, we may have to search sometimes, but you're always supposed to be able to find something about Jesus in these. Just a quick synopsis of what we're doing. Again, this is the Feast of Tabernacles. It's called the Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths, called Sukkot in Hebrew. Okay, and it's found in Leviticus 23, and we'll read this part of Leviticus 23. But it says this feast takes place on the 15th through the 22nd days of the 7th month of Tishrei. Celebration is always follows the Day of Atonement. The Feast of Tabernacles celebrates God's provision and protection for the people of Israel during their 40 years of wandering in wilderness. During the 7 days of the feast, people live in temporary structures as they did in the wilderness. The Lord himself was with the Israelites in the desert in the tented temple called the Tabernacle. So the feast also celebrates his presence as he tabernacles or dwells with us. And that's the tie-in there with Jesus, which we'll get to in a minute. If I can do the screen share right, I've got some pictures of the booths, the way people decorate them, build them, and all the goodies that they bring, in with it. I don't have a real PowerPoint presentation. I just went into Google for pictures. So when I'm searching for the pictures, it won't be pretty. Okay. Anyway, so when we covered this, it's in the 7th month of Tishrei, which is on these calendars here, is our months of October, September, October, right at the end of September, going into October. Sukkot this past year was on the 16th of October. It runs 16th of October through the 23rd. As with all the Jewish holidays, they change dates because it goes, they use a lunar calendar. And so that affects how it is. Where our holidays are put on the calendar and they're on those, on those dates. The next holiday that we'll do, I probably won't do it next week, but the week after that will be Hanukkah. And see, Hanukkah moves. But everybody associates it with Christmas. Jews even try to call it the Jewish Christmas, Okay, and just the way that when my parents used to do Hanukkah, they put up a Christmas tree, called it a Hanukkah bush, and away they went. You know? So that's what that is. But anyway, so and we'll read the passage in a minute. But the first two full days were no work allowed days. And you see this in a lot of the holidays. It's like a no work day. We don't have that anymore. Up until recently, even Christmas, people work, stores were open. Where else were you going to buy your batteries for all those Christmas gifts that were given and nobody bought batteries for? Yeah. What's that? Amazon. Yeah, but they needed them right then. Hi, Mary. Anyway, but they needed them right then. And even when I spent, a 1,000 years, working for Carl's Jr. restaurants, and we used to close on Christmas and we didn't close on Easter. And Carl Karcher, the founder and owner of the company, I mean, he was a big time, strong Catholic and all that. And I used to go to him and I said, why don't we close on Easter? It's a bigger holiday, And I don't think I ever made my case with him like that. But that's the thing. We don't stop and think, not only do we not work, but do we cause other people to work? Who are, you said Amazon,
They're all working.
Huh?
They're all working.
I think I have a package that's supposed to be delivered today. So technically I am making somebody work when they should be in church. We just don't do that. But God lays out in these holidays that it's no work. So in the notes there, I've got no work allowed. After that, work's allowed, because this is like a 7-8 day holiday, work's allowed with some restrictions, And as people, we need to almost be commanded into that, because by most people's nature anyway, is to work yourself to death, to be a workaholic, to achieve. And that's where we get it mixed up with our Christianity too, because we think we have to work to achieve instead of being able to just sit back and rest, in God. So Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, which we're doing today, Passover, Shavuot, and each Sabbath. You got to remember, Sabbath is a once a week, thing. Are no work days, no electronics days, no electrical appliance days, no music, nothing. You sit, you can read, you can pray, you can visit with family. See, that's the thing, is that on Sukkot, which was back in October, so it was football season. They didn't have any Monday night football on, on that day. And what do we do? Like on, what is it? Thanksgiving and Christmas is when they play the most games, it seems like, Ray, do your microphone. Everybody make sure your microphones are on.
I got a question on this Feast of Booths. Now, my understanding was that the booth was like a lean-to.
Yeah, it was simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't where you called out the building inspector, and I got some pictures. I put some pictures.
And the tabernacle will be more like a temple. Or would it not?
The temple would be if Calvary Chapel did this back in the 70s in Costa Mesa in Southern California when they were building their new church, because they outgrew their little church, and when they were building the new building for like 3 years, they bought a big circus tent. A huge circus tent, and they met in that. It's the same thing as a building. For this, because the building isn't the church. The people are the church. This is just our covering to keep us out of the wind this morning. So that's what they did. So when the people now see, and I haven't looked this up. I thought about this morning, even though I've been carrying this lesson with me for 3 weeks. But I thought about this morning. because it says in here, it says, you shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. So then I started thinking when I was reading this morning, and I started thinking, because you always find something new. You read over the same text 100 times, and all of a sudden something pops out, and you figure somebody just wrote that in my Bible this week. But no, but see, here's the thing. I started wondering, well, wait a minute. Did they travel around and live in these lean-tos, like Ray said, and every night put up their lean-to? And, because I've always had in the back of my mind that it was kind of a ceremonial thing after the fact that said, hey, so you'll remember this, the way we travel, do this once a year but I don't think anybody knows, because I know in the scripture it doesn't say. So I'll have to make something up like everybody else. No, but it doesn't say. But I don't know. But I don't know if they were tent people either. Bedouins today were tent people, but
Well, my understanding was when Moses came down off the mountain, he had the Ten Commandments, and he also had the schematics that God had given him to build the temple. And then he dedicated 2 people that were artisans to
Right.
build
Right.
the temple to the specifications that God wanted.
right.
And there was supposed to be a copy of the temple in heaven.
Well, no, actually, the temple that was built, the tabernacle and the temple that built were copies of heaven.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't wasn't the other way around. But the temple is different than these booths. I mean, that's the thing. He's just talking about what you as individuals can do, and the funny thing is, like I say, I'll show the pictures, but the funny thing is that when I grew up in Jewish communities, I don't remember ever seeing people setting up their booths, but maybe they do it in their backyards. And I know my family never did.
But the one thing that I did, because I was teaching Sunday school back then, and I got a hammer and a nail, and I basically put together the temple with curtains and strings and everything else.
Yeah.
And I took it to the Lutheran church that I belonged to, and the pastor became all excited. He wanted to show and display and take pictures and all this other stuff. But I had to think, wait a minute, this is a Jewish thing, and I'm bringing it to a Lutheran church. But like I said, he was all excited.
Well, you're right. It's a Jewish thing, and we don't do it, but Jesus did it. That's the thing. See, that's what we want to. Here's the thing. We don't study the Old Testament enough. What's your name again?
Kemper.
Kemper.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says he's reading the book of Ecclesiastes right now, which is great. I mean, because we always we'll get into Galatians or Romans, or, when we pick up and we want to do a study. I've been recommending to the master's men, let's read the Proverbs. I don't want to do a Bible study on the Proverbs.
Read Ecclesiastes first,
Yeah.
and then go into Proverbs. It's inspiring just for the fact that Ecclesiastes gives you balance on your life.
Talk about your bad news and good news.
And then Proverbs brings you back up in spirit.
Yeah. But see, this is the thing. This is what Jesus came out of. So when Jesus is doing stuff or saying stuff, it's based on this culture, this history. And even though we may not. But and if you turn to Leviticus 23, if you got a Bible, anybody need a Bible? I'll bring you a Bible. Okay, anybody want a Bible? Okay. In 23, and this is where all these feasts come out of. It says in verse 33, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the people of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of this 7th month for the 7 days is the Feast of Booths to the Lord. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work. For 7 days you shall present food offerings to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall hold a holy convocation and present a food offering to the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. You shall not do any ordinary work. These are the appointed feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as times of holy convocation for presenting to the Lord food offerings, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, drink offerings, each in its proper day. Besides the Lord's Sabbath, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vow offerings, besides all your free will offerings, which you give to the Lord. So he's saying, in addition to all these other things you got to do, these things here. I think next week, I think what we're going to go through is all the different offerings. Because they keep popping up, your grain offering, your sin offerings, your drink offerings, your, whatever they are, and I talk about what they are. Says on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the produce of the land, you shall celebrate the feast of the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. And you shall take on the first day the fruit of the splendid trees, branches of palm trees, and boughs of leafy trees and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It's a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in the booths for 7 days. All native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I have made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Thus Moses declared to the people of Israel the appointed feasts of the Lord. So that's what he says is supposed to be done. And it's for a reason, so people will know what the past was like. So when he says so your generations will know, what happened back there, this should still go on today. And I think in a way, that's what they're trying to do as they build these booths each week. When we get to Passover, which I'll probably hold until the spring, is the same thing. They're going through all the Passover stuff so that generations will remember what happened 3,500 years ago, or whatever that time period was. That they're still going, they're still going through it. Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting that the statement is made there that
Get closer to your microphone so that online they can hear.
Interesting the statement says all Israelites. So converts aren't?
I don't know that back then they had converts, because he took the people out of Egypt were the Jewish slaves. Now people, you gotta remember, Leviticus kind of happens fairly early. Okay. And I don't know how many people have attached themselves to the Jewish people at that time. I don't know that God's making a big distinction as much as saying, if you're Jewish, you got to do this. Okay. So here's the thing. What I've got in the notes here, I think I got this in your notes here. Jesus observed Sukkot. Jesus observed the Feast of Tabernacles in John 7. And it's really funny the way that it's brought up, because it's not brought up speaking really about the holiday itself. But see, there's 3 holidays that all the Jews were supposed to go to Israel, supposed to make an appearance at the temple and do. By this time, by Jesus' day, they've pretty much gotten away from it. They don't do it as well as they, as they should have. But in chapter 7, Luke. Hey, Luke's not Mark. Usually I type this out. Okay, it says, now when the Pharisees gathered to him with some of the scribes, am I in the right one?
Chapter 7.
Oh, I want to be in John.
John chapter 7.
I don't know why. Got me all confused.
Says, after this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He was seeking Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. and this is the Feast of the Booth. Now that the Jews' Feast of the Booth was at hand, so his brothers said to him, leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For not even his brothers believed in him.
Yeah. So, well, go all the way to 10. Yeah.
And Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but my time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me, because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to the feast, for my time has not yet fully come. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. That's up to 10. You want to go beyond it?
Go to 11 then.
Okay, but after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up,
Yeah,
not
there.
publicly, but in private. And the Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, where is he?
Okay. So here's the thing. And this is the mention of the feast, that there's a feast, and so the disciples are saying, you need to go down there. If you're going to make an appearance, if you're going to want people to follow you, you got to do it where the people are. Because that's one of those feasts that everybody has to be there. We know Passover, everybody was in town for Passover. That's when Jesus got crucified, because God has set this up so that the maximum number of people are going to be involved. Same thing, Pentecost. Pentecost is the other, is the third one, where Peter's preaching to the people in Acts chapter 2. And it lists like 7 or 8 different regions or countries that the Jews who are spread out have come from back to Jerusalem. So Jesus goes, so he figures, okay, those guys are gone, they bother me. Now I'm going to go secretly to Jerusalem. But he's got all those people there. Chapters 7, 8, and 9, which are pretty heavy chapters, all happened during the Feast of Tabernacles. So I mean, there's a lot happening, there that doesn't involve the purpose of the feast, but it involves the gathering of the people for Jesus to make that, appearance. In John chapter 1, it says that it said, and the word became flesh. It should be all familiar to you. It says, and the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. And when it says he dwelled among us, or dwelteth, or dwelt among us, the words there are that he pitched his tent, he encamps, he encamps with us, to tabernacle with us. It's like Jesus has come to earth and has lived with us, for his purpose. But that's the same thing, the tabernacling, of Jesus. So that's where Jesus is involved. Let me see if I can show up. If you people online get dizzy while I'm doing this, forgive me, but hopefully it'll work. Okay, let's see. Am I sharing? Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. So look, here's a little, does that show up on there? Can you see that okay? Hang on, let me see if I can make it bigger there. So there's like a little encampment in Jerusalem of these booths. Looks like a storage shed. That looks like where Indiana Jones where the government put the Ark of the Covenant. Let me see if I can do this without. What's that? Yeah, I know. Let me find a good one here. I didn't want that one. Hang on. Hang on. I should have practiced this more. I'm not really good at sharing, but I know. I think I'm stuck on this one picture. I don't know why. Wait a minute. Let me hang on. Hang on, everybody. Hang on. Let me stop sharing. Let me go back into. I'm still into. Oh, wait, no, here. This is where I want to be. So, like, here's the inside of one. This guy here. The inside of one. And then he's got, remember we read about the willow branches and the, oh, I forgot what it called. They got 4 foliages that they have to take with them. We'll get back into that as we go. I think it's on your sheet, but they take those in. It's a citrus thing, and it's a willow brook, a palm or a date palm or something like that. Let me come here. Here's the fruits. We'll read about those. Yeah. Let me see what else I got here. Pardon? Is it date palm? Yeah, date palms. Here's some people building. Here's some people building their thing. Whoops. What's that? Yeah, I know. Yeah. So here's like the decorations of the, the foliage, the vegetables or whatever it is that they've put on the outside of their now those that look like they bought those at Party City. But I can't tell for yeah, no, I mean, can't. What's that?
It's a citron fruit. I don't know what a citron fruit is.
Well, I'm guessing it's a citrus, but I mean, I know it's a citron tree. Yeah. In fact, on the list there, I've got what the 4 things are called, and they're kind of weird.
The lulav, the hadas, and the arava.
Yeah.
Which is citron fruit.
And that's what you see hanging before you on the screen. Yeah. I've got a hang on a second. I had a really cool picture, but it's at a different site. Hold on. Let me hang on. Let me where's my here? Okay. Were you guys able to see those?
Yeah.
Online?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yes, no, yes. Hang on, I got one more. Let me. I know. Let me find. Hang on, I have another set here, but let me. This one had a cool picture in it, but it's from a different site. Hang on. Okay. Wait, look at this here. Here. Oops. Here, look at this. These people build their booths on their balconies. Can you see that? So they've got the booths here out on their like apartment balconies. It's kind of cool. No, they just put them down and anyway, so so that's the pictures. That's what the modern day Jews are trying to do. Only because they didn't have cell phones back in Jesus' day, we can't get a picture of what Jerusalem looked like. But I got a feeling that people just showed up and that's the way they camped, even if it's just pitch tent or whatever. But there's not a bunch that says it, but this is a big Jewish holiday. So anyway, so you saw the pictures, you saw them build the booths, you saw them decorate the booth. There's some, I couldn't find the picture. I mean, I've seen the pictures before. I just didn't have time to really search, but they've got them where they've got these things really decked out that it would look like you're enclosed patio in Beverly Hills mansion, like that. So people, people really go out of their way and do those. But then we get to, hang on, let me look at one of your sheets here. I want to review this a little bit. So you got those 4 species of plants, but before that, you've got sacrifices. Now, this is what I've been saying throughout all these holidays that they go through, is they can't do the holidays properly because they have no temple. They have no priesthood. They have no sacrificial system. And they continue to do these, I think, out of disobedience. I think that they haven't recognized that God got rid of the temple on purpose to keep them away from doing those things that they missed. That those were all a preview to Jesus. They were kind of like word pictures, or what we used to do on flannel boards, to get people to understand. So they go, this is the way you carry these stories down of who you are, but what it points to. And then when it gets to the 1st century and Jesus comes and they miss it, and it's not that they just missed it, it's that they kept on with the old practice. They just kept on like Jesus had never been there. And so they keep going through and doing the same thing. I got to be careful when I say, the Jews missed it, because the Jews got it, the ones who followed Jesus. For the first 30 years, the church was Jewish. If you remember Acts 15, the council at Jerusalem, when Paul's having all those problems with the Gentiles and how to integrate them into the church, but we got this Jewish background, and then the Judaizers show up from Jerusalem, from James, who's the head of the church in Jerusalem. It's not like these are a bunch of renegades. A lot of people like to say, the Judaizers, they're coming there trying to destroy the work of Paul, which they may have been, but they were sent from James, in Jerusalem. So anyway, so they have this conflict between, do Christians, Gentiles, need to become Jews first to become followers of Christ? They go back to the council at what's called now the council at Jerusalem, and that was to deal with how to treat Gentiles, not how to treat Jews. The whole church was Jewish. And we don't remember that, or they didn't remember it, and they don't think, but we don't think about it that way. So anyway, I got on their sacrifices, and I got Numbers 29 in there, and I just want to read a piece of that. If I can find my sheet. Yeah.
When Jesus is having a conversation with the woman at the well, the woman at the well brings up the fact that you Jews say that we have to go to Jerusalem. And Jesus says there will come a time when you won't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. But you gotta remember also, Jesus, people get confused by this. I confuse myself when I say it. When all of the stuff Jesus did, that's under the old covenant. Yeah. We think, once Jesus was born, old covenant done, new covenant starts. That's where our Bibles are. You open up the new covenant, the first page you get to is the birth of Jesus. Well, that must be the new. But the old covenant went on, John the Baptist, the last of the Old Testament prophets, and all the way through what's it called? The thief on the cross. He's dying on the cross. It's old covenant, dying, because people say, he didn't have to be baptized. Yeah, he's old covenant, So when Jesus dies, that begins the new covenant. Now I forgot why. Because of what he said at the woman of the well. That's still all old covenant. It's all Jesus stuff. It's all important stuff. It's written in red. you know, in the Bible like that, but it's still under the old covenant. He brings the new covenant in on his upon his death. But Numbers, just listen to these first couple of days. This is what Numbers says when they go to celebrate or observe or whatever you call it, Sukkot. Okay, this is the offerings for the Feast of Booths. On the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work. This begins just like the Leviticus passage did. And you shall keep the feast for 7 days, and you shall offer a burnt offering, a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord, 13 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 male lambs, a year old. They shall be without blemish, and their grain offering of fine flour mix with oil, 3/10 of an ephah. It goes on. The second day, 12 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 male lambs, a year old without blemish. And then it goes into the grain offerings and also 1 male. Now, if you looked at any of those pictures, you didn't see any barbecues. No barbecues. So you think the booth would be set up with a barbecue to do because they can't. And so what they're doing is when they're doing their feasts, and I'm not criticizing for it because they don't have any other way to do it, but it's all happy time. But the blood of the sacrifices shows what it takes to please God. It says the pleasing aroma to him. God likes barbecue. Like that. So today you go home, you barbecue, it's a pleasing aroma to. I saw a ham. Dennis, did you? Yeah.
In Jerusalem, you walk up the Via Dolorosa, they got booths everywhere,
Yeah.
but they're selling things.
Oh,
Pieces of the cross,
yeah.
Dale,
Yeah.
that's their today's booth.
What's that?
Can we do baby back ribs?
Yeah. There you go. No, so I'm sorry.
Well, it's pork.
What is that? That's right. There. That's right. Sunday, January 19th. On the 19th, we will make a pleasing aroma to the Lord.
I was making a joke.
Yeah. What's that? January 19th. Yeah. So anyway, but see, that to me, that's a big thing that they're missing, that they don't do today. So they only get to do part of it. Now, I would never walk up to a Jewish family and say, you're defying the Lord by still building those booths. You should have stopped that when the temple, was destroyed. I mean, I just wouldn't do it because they may fit it in a little bit different way, but it's not the biblical way. That's the thing. They may have a reason to do it. And remember, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, the whole rabbinic Judaism system isn't built on the Bible at all. All the rabbi stuff and the synagogue stuff, and not built on the scriptures at all. Scriptures for true Judaism, for the Israelites, is built on the temple, the priesthood, and the sacrificial system. Who had a hand?
Yeah.
Right.
But there's people that are still making pilgrimage to Jerusalem to the present day, right?
Yeah, there's Christians that do it. I mean, there's, the land is somewhat, I've never been, okay? But it's somewhat special in that that's where all these events took place. It's historical. I mean, same thing if you went to Greece, or if you went on one of those travel with Paul, cruises and journeys. I mean, it's nothing holy about going to Greece, nothing holy about the fact that Paul was there, nothing holy that initial churches were built in that.
I believe a lot of the information that you're bringing about is in the Torah, which came from a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are not in the Bible. And so there's a lot more information in that in regards to the way they practice,
Well,
as far as I know.
right. Well, correct. But that's the same thing we do. And I think I've said this before. Christians, we observe things different in the Bible, or that isn't in the Bible, and Christmas isn't in the Bible. I mean, the nativity of Christ is in the Bible, but Christmas isn't in the Bible. Even if you come to church on Christmas morning, you
There's
know,
multiple books of Ruth that don't show up in the Bible.
there's multiple what?
Books of Ruth.
Well, I don't know about the Ruth, but there's multiple books, right? But they've been identified as, I mean, if we believe our canon is true, the canon being the books that make up the Bible, if we believe our canon is true, then it's easy to identify when other books have been found and, dug up. You have the Apocrypha books, which Roman Catholics include in their Bible, the Eastern Orthodox, they include in their Bible. The difference is the Roman Catholics have the good sense to put them all in one section where you can identify them. They put them between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Go visit a Coptic church.
Pardon?
Go visit a Coptic church.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
It's an interesting thing to see.
But see, the Eastern Orthodox, they intersperse them with other books. There's a long ending to Esther. You're reading a long Esther, or who else is Daniel? Daniel ends at chapter 12. Theirs ends at chapter 14. And you got Bel and the Dragon. That's always a good one. But anyway, but there's other books. There's other writings. They're called the pseudepigrapha, and that just means other writings. The pseudo means, we think of it as false, but it just means other. And pigraphas are, Latin or Greek, I forget which, for writings like that. But those have been but we can gather from those. We can get information about, especially the ones that were written at the same time or close to the time of the Gospels, because you get what other people were thinking, and that's an important, that's important. We do that today, we have our Book of Concord, Now we think that it's biblical in that it says what the Bible says. Just they're doing it more in a polemic way. They're doing it in debate with the people that disagree with them, whether it be the Roman Catholics or the Calvinists or the Anabaptists or whoever, but we do that. You go into, well, there aren't any Christian bookstores anymore, but if you go into a Christian bookstore, they got rows of books on Christian living. And it's like, now I'm not saying the stuff's not good. I mean, I just don't, but it's somebody trying to pull it. Pardon?
It's all interpreted.
Right.
A lot of what happens in regards to the way the faith works is those that are the leaders will interpret and tell us what it says.
Right.
And that's what we have today with the sermon. And that's good because these are scholars that know what they're talking about. But there's a lot of stuff out there that, like you said, in the bookstores, it's just garbage.
You gotta, well, and see, I forget, I was talking to one of you, probably somebody at the or at the other class on Fridays, is that you can listen to people and tell they don't have a teacher, especially with social media, with all the reels and the TikToks and the YouTubes and all that stuff, is they get out and they'll read a passage and then they come up with this idea. You see, and if you're well versed in the Bible, you don't even have, you don't have to be a scholar, but if you know what the Bible is saying, or you can go open that passage and say, that doesn't say that, like that. But you can tell these people go through and nobody does it. And that, I know it was in Master's Men. And I finished up because I said, I may be wrong on stuff, but I only talk to the 15, 20 of you. That's as far as it goes. But if I was popular on social media, it would go to, what is Elon Musk have? 200 million followers. So, if he says something outrageous, which he does, no, but on this topic, like if he says something outrageous, it goes to 200 million people. Some take it with a grain of salt. Some don't understand even what the concept is or whatever. So, that's why you got to know. So that's Pastor Callio's favorite thing. Stay in the Word. Stay in the Word. The more that you're in the Word, the more that you'll recognize untruth. Yeah, right. And then we got to move on.
I was thinking of my mother-in-law, that she was Jewish and somewhat of an atheist, but then she got hooked up with Schuler out of California, so she's, every Christmas, she's collecting all these nativity scenes from everywhere that she travels. She brings them home to display for Christmas, and then she got the menorah lit up too.
You know what? But see, all that stuff isn't bad. In fact, celebrating Christmas, the Santa Claus bit and the whole bit is not bad, as long as you're celebrating like a civil Christmas. That's what we call Christmas. And you got Santa Claus and the gifts for the kids and the Christmas tree, and you go do this and you do that, is separate from we come to church and we celebrate the nativity of Jesus. You can do both. You just can't mix. You just can't mix both, you know? And that's why, you know, my other church in Southern California, you know, we used to have Christmas Eve service and Christmas morning, you know, services, and we don't here. But a lot of churches would close on Christmas. They wouldn't be open on, I shouldn't say close on Christmas, they just wouldn't open on Christmas. They would be open on Christmas, and their thought was, well, that's family day. Like, well, wait a minute, isn't bringing the family to church? And I don't mean to pass judgment on people that don't. I mean, but isn't bringing the family to church to observe, and you know, like from 10 to 11 in the morning, you know, worth something as part of family day? I mean, we just do that kind of, and we all get caught up in it. It's hard to fight culture. It really is. It's hard to fight culture. We're in this American culture, has light touch on Christianity. You know, we're like fish in water. You know, they say like fish in water. They don't know that they're in water. That's just the culture that they're in, and we're not too different from that. And these Jews doing like the Feast of Booths are the same way. I just want to cover a couple of more things here. Is that these species of plants that we talked about, you know, this is where was my, what do I got here? You know, this is at the end of harvest season. That's what the fall, you know, the spring's like the planting, the holidays that are in the spring are like observing the plantings, and the fall feasts are the ingathering. In fact, this part about bringing in the sheaves, like that. Where Sherry's the only one who knows what the sheaves are because she looked it up several weeks ago. But is that it's called the Feast of Ingathering. So you're bringing all your stuff in, and then you're doing your celebration or what around the around the plants, you know, and why these four, I don't know. It's just that's what the four are. So let's see. We did the Tabernacles. Let's see. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll leave off there. We'll start on next week. We'll just finish these last two. The eighth day. The eighth day is important because it's a 7-day feast. So it's for these 7 days. And then it's got in there. And on the 8th day, you'll do this. You know, anybody know what the 8th day symbolizes, at least probably in Jewish thought too, but in the church life, is that Jesus was raised on the 8th day. You know, it's first day of the new week, but they call it the 8th. You know, they call it the 8th day. It's a day of new beginnings. And so in this 7-day feast, here's what you do. But on the 8th day, you do this. We'll cover that a little bit next week. And then we'll go into the different offerings about what they mean, because they show up all the time. Any questions? How'd my pictures do online, Chris? They were okay, or you didn't see them?
Good.
We didn't see them.
You didn't see them.
Only the first one, and then when you quit sharing, they were gone.
Maybe I didn't hit the share screen right. I'll get better at that.
Okay, it's all right.
I used to do it, and I haven't done it for a long time, and then you forget, wait a minute, how do I attach that in there? Now you got 13-year-olds that do it and they do it just fine, but I mean, I can't figure it out. Okay, any last questions and then we'll break up. Okay, let's close with the Lord's Prayer then. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. And this kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.